So I know Scott's on. Do we know how much of a delay there is between? None? Okay.
Okay. Let's call this meeting in order. It's 8 o'clock. Let the minutes show that all the members are present. We need a approval of the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion to approve the agendas.
Virginia, seconded by Doak. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You each got a copy of the, or should have seen a copy of the minutes. And is there any additions or corrections? If not, then I need a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Make a motion to accept the minutes. as
Okay,
presented.
motion by Doak, seconded by Virginia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay. Any public comment? No public comment. Administrative report, and that will be by most of this is by Paul this morning. Scott is attending on what do you got on Zoom? Okay.
Zoom.
Go ahead. Take it.
Okay, yeah, so we can hear him. We can't see him because he's got no picture up there, but he's in the room. So monthly financial report. We'll start with our most recent sales tax collection in September for the month of August, mostly. 128,100, bringing the year to date up to 859,000 compared to last year's 801,000. So we're almost 60,000 ahead of last year's. So the trend continues. As far as individual departments, I'm not going to go through each one again. I'll hit some highlights here. The first one being we had recently had a workers' comp audit. So in 3 departments, child support, veterans, and public information office, you'll see that there were some reclassifications of workers' comp. They'll be over budget on those individual lines because I made the change now, so we're not owing them out again at the end of 2020. But for the 19 audit, they changed their classifications for 3 positions. So those are over for that reason. It's relatively small amounts. It's not gonna be a big problem for the individual departments or the county at the end of the year. Just if you see those, that's the reason behind it. And effective, we're looking at the August statements. You are starting to see or will soon see many of the COVID-related expenditures. The biggest ones being obviously the project list that was approved last time. Some down payments have started. Routinely in other ones, you'll see office supplies and postage just because of in-person meetings don't happen anymore. Printing, cleaning, obviously. And then there's a few places that we've already discussed about where they use some loss of revenue, jail and sheriff being the biggest ones. Passports are down, although surprisingly, maybe not. Marriage licenses were the other ones we thought that would be down for the year, and those are actually catching up or maybe even surpassing last year. Individually, by those departments that we talked about last month, where they were projecting potentially going over budget by year, and the coroner is still on track for their projection. Again, they're busier than usual, and it's not COVID related. It's just a busy year for the coroner. Emergency management, you'll see a little different. Budget to actual is a little different as well. One employee retired early in this year, and then we had somebody come in and has resigned already. So those changes in employment will show up. They'll be under budget, but you're going to see some numbers that are budget to actual look a little off. Information services, you're going to see a large increase in the outlay expenditures there, and those are for the COVID projects that were approved last month. Maintenance sees a lot of COVID expenditures, cleaning supplies in particular, all the plexiglass you see, as well as the health department. Much of the COVID expenses are there. They have COVID grants that cover everything in their department. The sheriff department we talked about in detail last time, and And everything that was discussed last month is on track yet for this month. And just a heads up that the extension looks like they're well ahead of the game, but agent contracts for the 4 state agents we have, those are only paid twice a year. The second payment isn't made yet. And then a little bit this time, I don't know if I've done this in a while, but the last 2 or near the end, you'll see the health and dental insurance funds. And in a couple minutes, we'll be looking at the health and dental insurance reports from Horton, and you'll notice that they don't match up perfectly, and they won't, but they do. The trends are similar or the same, and that's because there's a timing difference. Those reports from Horton see the information a little bit earlier, as well as the stop loss payments. The reports from Horton see that a lot sooner than we actually get the check. But in this case, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but here. In this case, I'm going to jump to this right away, but the medical year to date through August, we have 151,000 to the good. And if we look at the statements, it's, if I remember, it's about 120 or 30. And again, that's mostly timing. At year end, there's an adjustment that I have to make for financial reporting that these reports never do. They just go on cash in, cash out. So that's the small difference that you'll see in those. Dental, the Horton reports say 15,000 to the good, and I believe our statements had about 11 or 12,000 to the good. There's less variables in the dental, so those are always a lot closer. And we've talked about in previous months that yes, we're going to see this year. COVID, we believe, and it's part of the projection for next year, that everybody's going back to appointments, and eventually they'll catch up, but it probably won't be by the end of the calendar year. Okay. I went through that rather quickly this time, but if there are any questions, yes.
I always try to focus on the revenues because that seems to be the variable. And once again, I find 8 of them that total up to about little over $1 million short just on the revenue side.
Sure.
I think we've had this explanation. I do it every month. I ask the question, you give it to me. Is there any chance you could preemptively just, for instance, the miscellaneous non-department's $404,000 behind right now. Again, I'm sure you have a good explanation for that.
Yeah.
Rather than waste time here, can
Okay.
you address those somehow when you send out the report? Because
If you send me that list and you have those specific ones that you want me to cover each time, yes.
Okay.
I'll add it just like I do the sales tax. I hit that one specifically. I'll hit those as well.
That every month, every time we say.
And that's a big number.
A lot behind, and yet
Yeah.
say, don't worry, it'll get there.
And non-department, our second payment comes in November, and most of those are the payments from the state are 15% in March and 85% in November.
Okay.
Any other questions for Paul?
You said about 8 of them?
Yeah, I'll show you afterwards.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I have nothing more on the financial. The medical and dental, I've kind of covered that. Scott, do you have anything on the large claims?
I do not.
And actually, the very last one, the IBNR, incurred but not reported. That's the report I just do at year end that you don't see in the medical and dental reports. That's a financial reporting requirement. But I don't do that month to month. It goes up, it goes down. Usually it's pretty small numbers. So I have nothing else on that.
From the IBNR report, I usually do not send that to the committee. And again, part of the reason why is because, as Paul had said, that's more of a financial, it does, and therefore I just provide the medical, the dental, and the large claimant just to give the committee an idea of where claims and costs are trending.
Okay, well, maybe you didn't get that. Okay.
Yeah. Overtime report.
Overtime report. Everybody got it right. our meeting date is right on top of the time that most of these reports are generated, so those had to be sent out separately. I guess rather than restate what's mentioned in previous months, or if Scott has anything to add, the sheriff and jail are doing what the sheriff and jail need to do. You'll see a little bit in highway, and you see a little bit in human services. Just keep in mind that the highway, some of that is billed to somebody else, so it's not necessarily coming out of our pocket and not being reimbursed. Is there any specific questions on the overtime report? Yes.
So, in both, I don't have it right in front of me, but I was looking at last night, the general fund is already used up all of this year's budget and is exceeding that, right?
Yes.
As is the highway. How are we gonna make that up, or is there an explanation to say that's not gonna be something that the county pays?
I'll start easily with the highway one. Much of that is billed to somebody else, so overtime's up, revenue's going to be up. That one will cover. As far as the general fund, outside of the sheriff and jail, it's virtually nothing. The sheriff and jail, part of that was looking at the overall sheriff's department in the last couple months. And again, in October or so, there'll be one more call saying, is there anybody who thinks they're going to go over budget? And I don't know that anything's changed in the sheriff since last month, but overall, yes, overtime is up, but there's probably some wages that are down. If there's a vacant position, we're not paying wages, but we're paying some over. So that's when you look at the overall department, and overall wages and benefits, are we still okay? And for the sheriff's department in particular, we went into great detail during the budget time saying, how are we going to come up? And that one's okay. It's still okay this month from what I see, and we'll do one more quick review in about October. So at the end of the year, if there's a budget adjustment needed, and what that would be is saying, okay, we projected X, Y, and Z for wages and benefits and overtime. We had more overtime, but we had less here, and we'll do an entry to say, here's how we're going to end up. And that usually happens, we look in about October, try and get that into the November, December meeting so it's before the end of the year is done. If there's no questions, then I have nothing else.
Okay. Moving on, Department of Justice grant expenditures. Matt, you maybe want to be the one to adjust that, right?
Yes, if you would like me to.
Okay, do it.
So yes, recently there was a grant opportunity that was provided. So originally this came from what's called the Burn J grant. It comes from the Federal Department of Justice. And there were identified counties that were able to benefit from that. So I've been keeping my eye on this, as have other sheriffs throughout the year, because there were only certain counties that were authorized to receive those funds, but then there was another chunk of money that was going to go to the state as pass-through. So we knew that sooner or later it was going to come down to us, but it came as a pass-through from the state. So that recently did come about, and so we jumped all over that, and the maximum allowed was $58,000. They were somewhat, I don't want to say restrictive, but they definitely defined the parameters of what we could submit as far as grant expenditures. And they did have to be basically relative to, of course, the coronavirus, being that it's called the Coronavirus Emergency Fund. So basically the three priorities were develop safe methods to operate courthouse with social distancing, creating safe processes for resuming operations and purchasing items necessary to resume courthouse operations, increasing safety in jails for both jail staff and incarcerated population, and increasing safety of law enforcement officers. Those are the three criteria. So I had some conversations with staff over at the Department of Justice, and what I submitted for were basically three basic categories, or two items, and then the third is all PPE. So the two items under equipment, the first is what's called the SkyTrine UV disinfectant robot. These have been incorporated in some of the larger jails who could afford it, being that the price of this was around $40,000. It's something that we were aware of, but nothing we would have ever considered having the resources for. But this definitely fit within the parameters of this grant. So I submitted for one of these. The nice part about it is it's portable. It's basically on wheels. Currently, we do some disinfecting. We do it with a mist. So you'll see people like with orchard sprayers going around basically misting offices to do disinfecting. Well, when you've got an office, with your paperwork and electronics, I've never been a big fan of it. This is a dry method. It's UV light. So you roll this unit into an office, you shut the doors, turn it on, and then it disinfects everything within that office. So again, this isn't just for the sheriff's department or just for the jail. We can utilize this in any county spaces that you'd feel the need relevant for. So that was one of the items. And then the second, originally I did put in for overtime. Sort of your point, we knew that we're going to incur some overtime due to coronavirus. So I submitted and they called back, said, no, we're not covering your overtime. You got to find something else. So I called over to Cindy Kinnard over at Public Health and said, is there something that we could all benefit as a county that you're seeing? And one of the things that she brought up, and we're well aware of it, is what's called fit testing equipment. So when you have to wear the N95 mask, not these or the surgicals, but the N95s, you legitimately have to be fit tested to actually wear those. That's quite a process currently. We actually have this big hood. It looks like something from a TV series, and then you squirt a chemical into it, and then if the person can taste the chemical, it's not good. If they can't, it's good. So it's really kind of archaic. So Cindy said there's a portal. It's called a port account that there's one that they share around this whole region of the state that they all try to get a hold of to do their fit testing. She said if you could get one of those, that would be great. Not again just for the sheriff's department, but even all your first responders, for everybody throughout the county. It's portable, it's mobile, it's something that everybody could benefit from. So that was 13.4. I mean, ultimately it was, I think the total cost was 19, but that had a bunch of stuff with warranties and all that. So all that I'm doing is the item itself at 13.4, and then about $3,500 worth of PPE. That's gloves, gowns, masks, face shields, all that. So all told, I think what I submitted for is around 57.3 out of the 58,000 for this grant. And again, that's 100%. There's no match. I did submit it. I've had some back and forth. Everything looks solid. So that grant should be tracking. And I've worked well with Paul on it, so I appreciate Paul's input. Kristen's as well in regards to the grant side of it with the SAM's numbers and all the criteria we have to abide by.
Okay. Any questions for Matt?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Monday the 5th. So again, I submitted it yesterday, 2 days ago. So it's submitted. We got ahead of the deadline. So if there's any back and forth, we'll have those conversations to clean it up.
Okay.
I think Scott had something.
You have something?
Yeah,
Scott?
the big reason why I support this is, and having the conversation with the sheriff, and I really applaud him for it, is we were able to find items that could be used countywide, not just for the sheriff. So I think this is a good thing. I always like to have grant money that is if we're gonna use that, we try to buy it for something that can have some shelf life, as well as be able to provide value to more than just one department. And I think these two are both examples of things that can be used for multiple departments.
Way to go, Matt.
Yep.
All right. Moving on. Number 8, approval of 2021
Mr.
budget.
Chair? Mr. Chair, we need a motion to approve this because this
Sorry.
would be that amends the budget.
Yep, you're right. We would need a motion for approval of Matt's grant. If we could,
I'll make
by
a motion to
Virginia.
approve the grant.
Okay,
Expanded.
a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Doak. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, moving on to number 8. Budget adjustments. There's one in here, and Gary, if you want to pop up on this one, it would be on Highway Committee request.
Sure, I can definitely, let's see here.
So on the list that was sent out, it's number B.
It would be B,
If you don't mind though, yesterday Todd did send me the I just lost transportation aids, the final calculated number. So there's actually two things for highway. We should probably discuss them separately. They're related, but they are different.
we can get the second one under E.
Yeah.
Further down, okay? The first one, as I recall from speaking with Todd, the committee approved the budget.
I have it here, John, if you want me to.
Okay, you go ahead.
Okay, I gotta find it. It was just a change of, we had put 400,000 into from our, or actually from our general fund, right, from the
That was coming, I believe that came out of the,
road and bridges.
Road and Bridges
Yes,
fund
correct,
balance.
that's what I call our general fund. And so Scott had put 300,000 in there. So I guess the request was that we could get the 400,000 back in. This money goes for road paving, road rebuilding, whatever. It's our savings account. So it's not tax dollar change. So I guess is that the first item that you want to take? And if that doesn't change, then there's another change here, I guess.
well, that would be the first one, yes.
There's actually two.
Because that one was approved by the committee as to 400.
That is correct, yes,
That was Todd's concern,
yes.
that we.
Mr. Chair?
That's that. Yes. Go ahead.
Maybe just to keep it in some sort of order, could we have Mr. Kunish kind of go down each of the letters A through E, and then if there's additional questions or concerns, the committee can decide to approve them all as a whole or decide to approve them singularly, whichever is the committee's preference. But from an explanation standpoint, it kind of keeps everything in some sort of order.
Okay, we can do that. Go for it.
Okay, this is a list of everything known so far, and there may be a few stragglers here and there as we go, but we'll have another meeting, well, several other meetings before we're done. So A, this is for those who've been there on the committee more than this year. Routinely, we get an adjustment for state shared revenue and utility revenues because that report from the state doesn't come until September 15th, if it's on time, which it was this year. But the administrator's proposed budget is put together and published prior to that. So we always have this adjustment. And this year, we had a $30 decrease in state shared revenues. And if that was the only adjustments, I wouldn't be bringing this forward. But the utility tax is, I lost my number here, is 33,492 less than estimated. And since this is the first entry in the whole list, after I put the budget book together, I realized that the health department was asking for 3 computers. The COVID grants bought them 3 computers this year already. They don't need that. So that's kind of a, we'll call it housekeeping, taken out there when it doesn't really need to be in. And then the other 3 lines you see are making it come out. So we need tax levy from someplace. So if we're going to reduce our state shared, utility tax revenue in the general fund, then it's got to be made up for something else. So I'm moving property tax levy out of the capital improvement fund into the general fund, so everything's in balance. If there's no questions, I'll keep going. I think B was covered already. That the highway committee and department requested something that was different than in the administrator's proposal, and that explanation's been given. Did I hear something?
Mm-mm.
Okay. C, the executive committee last month met and considered and approved 3 changes to the wages. Three individual changes to the in the pay plan. Each one's listed there. One's for the sheriff, one's for the public information officer, and one for information services. This is the net effect of that. Now, again, we knew that the request was coming, so we had a little extra in the capital improvement fund to cover what we thought would be in there. So we're increasing the wages and benefit expenses. And again, once again, transferring money out of the capital improvement fund into the general fund where those 3 departments reside. And then that balances everything else out. Number D, After the budget book was published, Land Information Office received notice that he's going to get $10,000 more in his grant revenue. And that one is a strategic initiative grant, so that's going to be used on a project. So we increase revenue 10,000 for the increased grant, and we increase the other projects for $10,000. No levy impact to that. That's just updating information when it was received a little later. Number E. Here we go. E. Again, after the budget book was put together and the sheriff put in his best estimate of what the replacement vehicles will be for this year, the quote came back. Prices of vehicles through the state contractor have gone up in general, and the sheriff's vehicles are no exception. So the difference between the best estimate and the actual quote that came through was $5,526, and so we found, or the administrator said, take 5,000 out of professional development. That's for the lean training, and the other 526 came from a different line in the sheriff's department. And again, that one isn't asking for more levy anywhere. It's just reshuffling. And then the last one, finally, that we have numbers for is the highway transportation aids. And the statement yesterday shows an increase of $24,018. So the entry for that, which I don't have the numbers filled in on here because I didn't have them yet. So we would be increasing local transportation aid revenue by $24,018. And then we would need to take $24,018 less from the fund balance. So that kind of ties those two together. One's taking from fund balance, one is putting it back. The net effect is $75,982 if you want to put them together. The last one I have on the page is, I won't say a placeholder. There may be one coming, as it stands right now, there's one coming. I don't have it all calculated. The executive committee made a change to the pay plan, how it was going to be paid in 2021. It affects everybody who's on the pay plan and most, if not all, departments. And I don't have that one done. But that number, I don't have it in front of me, but I calculated what the total impact was, and I have to account for example, excuse me, the highway department doesn't have direct levy in there. They will bill for it. So the highways portion won't necessarily affect levy. Health department and human services have the same thing. They have grants that cover it. I have to consider that before I make the whole entry. Health department's actually pretty straightforward. Human services takes a little bit more. So that one will come. I believe we're going to have a meeting October 20th before the board meeting, and I'll have numbers for that one at that time. Just so this is a heads up that there's one more coming. And that's everything I have, unless there are questions.
Gary, did you have any follow-up on that? On item B?
Well, the other no, I don't.
Okay. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I guess being new to this process, I don't understand a couple things about the highway committee requested and Scott's request to reduce it. Why is that being chosen to be pulled out of the fund rather than part of the tax assessment or levy? And then what was Scott thinking that we could do it with $100,000 less? I don't understand those.
Do you want the?
Sure. The 100,000 basically comes out of what I call our savings account. It's roads and bridges funds. It's money that's put in there. It's money that can be used for buying equipment or whatever. We felt that we could use that money for doing some extra road work in 2021. We also did this in 2019, I believe. We took some money and used it for extra road work. So we have the need for the road work. So that's really the main reason. don't know if that answered your question, Doak, or not.
Did
but-
did you want to hear Scott's theory on
I
it?
guess he, yeah, Gary said 100,000, but he's asking for 400,000.
No,
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 no, the
no.
original request was 400,000.
Right, right.
And Scott reduced it to 300,000.
That is correct,
I'm
yes.
just trying to understand why initially the 400,000 was not part of the tax levy. It's just, we have more repairs than we can afford.
No, basically, roads and bridges is for road work, okay? It repairs, it comes out of a different section of it. But the 400,000 amount, by $100,000 decrease basically amounts to about 3/4 of a mile less of paving.
Okay.
Okay. So that pretty much tells you that if we take 100,000 out, that we're going to pave 3/4 of a mile less of road.
Okay.
All right.
John, I believe Todd is on.
I think
He's-
Todd is also in on
He's
it.
listening, but he didn't sign on, so he can call. He
Okay.
can't call this number, but he'll call one of you if he wants to or needs to
Yeah.
speak up.
Yeah.
Okay. Tom?
I can talk if you'd like, Mr. Chair. This is Scott.
Go ahead.
Just
Go ahead,
just
Tom.
a simple answer is that the 400,000 would put on the tax levy, 400,000 somewhere else would have had to been removed because we would have been over the levy.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have the same levy from last year, I'm sorry, 2020 to 2021, but they're asking for extra work.
So they have more work than we can afford with the current, by keeping the tax levy within our limit. Yes.
Scott, did you want to get in on this?
Sure. Yeah, the highway department had submitted a budget with the levy being the same, roughly about 2.58 million in tax levy. That's the same as what it was last year and the year before. So from a tax levy standpoint, we're levying about the same year after year. The highway department did want to do some more projects, and so therefore, with the money that is in their roads and bridges fund, they were asking for 400,000 to be transferred over to supplement their budget. They had asked for a similar transfer the year before. I had looked at their fund balance, and their fund balance continues to go down. If we go from what the audit was, it would be going down now close to $2 million. But when I also looked at the lines, they had increased the general maintenance line by $100,000. And so what I had done is, my concern is I don't want the fund balance to get down to a point that if we want to do additional projects and the like, then that has to come from the general fund. And I know 2 million sounds like a lot of money, but I'm wanting to really be conservative when we start using fund balance. So what I did is, instead of doing $400,000 of fund balance transfer, I did $300,000 of fund balance transfer, and I reduced their general maintenance line by $100,000, which they had increased from last year's budget by $100,000. So my reduction does not do anything regarding road construction per se. It doesn't do anything about paving a mile. It has to do with general maintenance, which still deals with roads, but is not regarding road construction.
You want to say something, Gary?
Well, I guess the first decision has to be made, if we're going to leave it in or take it out. That's number one. And if it comes out, then we're going to ask for a change in where that money, that 100,000 is from. Okay, line item. So it would
Yep.
just be adjusted.
Anybody want to jump here?
I think the committee's a little bit confused on this
Yeah, yeah.
but and maybe Paul can help explain this. Every year, the county budgets a certain amount of money for highway projects and so forth. and highway also has a savings account on the side, is that right?
The term savings account is okay, not great.
Okay.
So it's a good simple way to get the point across, but if you're talking technically, it's fund balance in the highway fund, similar to what's in a number of other funds, including the general fund. Now, you said you call it general fund. To me, and most, there's a difference between the two funds. So the history, so we've levied some money and over the course of, the last 50 years or whatever, and not all of it was spent. There's some left over. It's budgeted for in the Highway, Roads and Bridges Fund. It stays in the fund balance until it's needed or used at a later time. So in that sense, I guess you can call it a savings account. It's there for those purposes that come up, or if you need it later. Well, in 2020 and 19, I think we had some big bridge projects, and that's not easily absorbed into the annual budget, and it doesn't happen every year. So we used some fund balance because, number one, the fund balance percentages was high enough, it was healthy, and you had bridges that needed to be replaced at relatively high price tag. Use the fund balance for that. So in this case, we have the same levy, which covers winter maintenance, construction, and general maintenance. And there's a request for more work to be done, and the request was taking more from fund balance. The committee and the department requested 400,000 for X, Y, and Z, and then the administrator, with his description, just said, well, we'll take 300,000, and the offset was to general maintenance. So the money that we're taking from the fund balance is in the Roads and Bridges Fund from previous years. So there's a purpose for that, and again, that falls within the fund balance policy for the overall county. We should keep 15 to 25% in there, and yes, we're above that. I do want to point out, though, that this is county money. Just because it was budgeted for in the Roads and Bridges Fund doesn't mean it's automatically the highways, but that's where it is right now. And it was budgeted for purposes of the highway in previous years, and that's where it is. And knowing that there's going to be bigger projects or contingencies or things coming up, that's why we keep fund balances there, including the Highway, Roads, and Bridges Fund.
What replenishes that after we pull out this year after year? What replenishes that fund?
If you pull it out year after year after year, it won't. Here, I'll give you a simple example. One piece of that is winter maintenance. So if you take 10 years worth of winter snowstorms, you have high years and low years. When you have a good year and you put money back into it, you can then use it in those years that you have the 10-year storm where you spent more than what you budget. So if you budget for average, you're going to have high years and low years, and those offsets. Yes.
That's all.
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't spend it last year. We have it available for future
There's
uses.
no levy that goes into that small amount every year?
No.
Just what they say.
Just what was budgeted for or received by the department and not spent in that year, and it's carried forward. That's ultimately the definition of fund balance. It's there unspent from previous years. So if you have a bad year, in particular a bad winter, you can go to the fund balance. As long as your fund balances remain high enough and stable enough, you're okay. If you do that year after year after year after year, you have a budget shortfall that you need to take care of.
Isn't it typical, though, that most departments, if they come in under budget, that money goes back to general fund?
If they're a general fund department, yes, most of us are. The highway has their own fund. So if the highway was part of the general fund, yes, it would be going into the general fund.
If they save it, they keep it. Essentially.
Yes, but the county board, yes.
I also heard that Scott said that there was an addition of $100,000 in general maintenance. Do we understand, I guess that would for Gary, what the reason is for that?
That was the offset, the 100,000?
Yeah, that was the administrator's change, was to reduce the amount coming out of fund balance and took it out of general maintenance, not paving.
Right, but I think in the highway budget, they had asked for an additional 100,000 above last year, correct?
No, well, we asked for 400,000 last year also.
No, I'm not talking about that. I think Scott said that on your line item for general maintenance, you had gone up 100,000?
Well, the reduction came out of,
I'll find that for you in a second.
yeah, he had,
I'm just trying to get square on that one too.
We had budgeted 190 last year also.
Page 117.
Yeah, 170.
Yep.
I'm cross-eyed here, so 1 second. General maintenance budgeted for in 2020, 1,019,000. Requested 1,119,000. And that's where the,
Scott said pull it out of there.
yes.
So what was the reason for the extra, the rationale for that, or?
Well, he put it into there, but the request was coming from Todd that basically if it would come out of the construction account number and go into there, it would be better for us because we have more general maintenance than we do construction. So it was just a request to take, if that was where it was supposed to come out of, to be moved to the construction account.
One more question, maybe perhaps a commentary on, what is in this roads and bridges fund and drawing it down to this level and what you think is a healthy number or not. That must be helpful.
Well, a healthy number, again, our fund balance policy says 15 to 25%, which would be 15 to 25% of annual expenditures. So if we take the current balance as of end of 19, 2.4 million, annual expenditures of 4.2 million, we're actually at 56%, down from 93%. We've taken out a few years worth of it. So it's still healthy, but you keep doing this and it won't be very long. And these are big projects and big numbers.
Mr. Chair?
We're gonna put Todd on it, okay? Go ahead.
Good morning. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Is that coming across all right?
Sounds good.
Yep.
A couple of clarifications, I guess. In the big picture in regards to the budget, the overall budget for 2021, as far as revenues, is looking to be or planning to be the same as 2020. So that's why there was the $400,000 request out of fund balance in order to cover some anticipated expenses in regards to construction and maintenance. The reason why there was an increase in the maintenance line item in the levy budget is that in order to keep the expenses to come out the same as the revenues, I put that in the maintenance line item, but we're also seeing an uptick in maintenance because of the infrastructure that is out there. And there's aging infrastructure out there. We're finding culverts, large culverts and things like that that are very expensive that aren't necessarily on the horizon for work as we plan in our road construction things. These are things that just come up throughout the course of the year. That's why there was an uptick in the maintenance line item in the event that those things come up and we discover those things throughout the course of the year.
That it?
That's it for now.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll
with the phone.
Go ahead. We'll just, you should be able to, but go ahead. Any comments here? Doak. Scott, did you have one?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Paul is right that the Roads and Bridges Fund is healthy. It's at 56%. And yes, I can understand from a financial standpoint that we could say we have more than enough money in the fund. And from a strict number standpoint, I don't disagree. I do want to look a little bit more long-term in the respect that when we talk about maintenance of projects, I'd like to have I'm not sure how to describe it. I don't want to have a spike in projects from where we have a large amount of money coming out of the fund balance to do projects. And now what happens is, from a maintenance standpoint, 10, 15 years down the road, we now have a spike in maintenance or construction costs because we had this spike in projects in a short period of time. I want to make sure that when we do those types of things, that they're smoothed out over time. And again, I want to make sure that we continue to have a fund balance, that if we need to do some other projects, that that money is available. But in the big picture, and this is where I want to be pretty clear, is this is in no way some hill I want to die on. So if the committee feels sympathetic to providing the extra 100,000, which is now 76,000, I don't have a problem with it.
If part B of this, the next adjustment is the increase in transportation aids. So if we net those two together, we're not taking 100,000 out because we're getting 24,000 more in transportation aids.
John, I have one more comment.
Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead, Todd.
Just one more comment for the committee. You know, Scott and I have been working closely over the last, you know, I've been here 7 years now, and Scott a little bit less than that. But this budget that I present from the highway department is one that fits within the whole county budget. There's a lot more need out there on the roads and bridges and within Kewaunee County than what we put annually into our budget. But this is something that has worked for us as a department as far as revenues and expenses have been concerned. And I think that works for the county too, and fits into the budget. But with using the fund balance in the last few years, we've been able to get a few more projects done out there on the roads. And I believe that the people, you know, like that a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
let me see if I understand this.
Did you want to stay on, Todd?
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. All right, Doak.
So in Todd's original budget, he was asking for 400,000 out of the,
I think we did lose our feed.
Yeah, Ross should come check. Is the audio still on? Okay.
Are you on? there?
Scott, can you hear me?
Scott, are you on? No.
Yes, I can hear you.
oh yeah, Scott.
It's been that kind of week. It just has.
Keep going.
Yes, I'm all good.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I just
All right.
mute myself sometimes so that way if my kids or something like that make a noise, you aren't going, what the heck's happening in my house?
All right. Not a problem. All right.
So
Go ahead, Doak.
I'm trying to see if I got this sorted out. In the original budget, we were asking for 400,000 for road repairs or whatever out of the highways
Fund balance.
fund balance. And Todd was asking for an extra $100,000 in tax levy that he was going to use for maintenance.
No, not in tax levy.
Nope.
Included in that 400,000 was the 100,000 for road maintenance. So he asked for the same tax levy and 400,000 coming out of the fund balance. 100,000 of that was
It was gonna
an
go
increase.
into the maintenance.
Yes. So there's an increase in general maintenance, even tax levy. Asked for 400,000 coming out of it. So that difference of 100,000 would have been part of the 400,000 coming out of fund balance.
And what Scott was suggesting was just reduce that total transfer out of the fund balance by $100,000.
Yes. Yes.
So pull out 300. put
Instead of
100 in
400.
maintenance. Still 100 goes into maintenance.
Well,
Extra maintenance or whatever.
so Scott's proposal was to take 100,000 less out of fund balance, making it from 400 to $300,000. And the offsetting reduction to expenses would have been from general maintenance, which it sounds like the highway would like to change if, okay.
Well, is the ultimate question then, do we want to make that broken into the 24,000 and the 76,000 make up the 100,000?
Here.
Combine the 300,000 and 400,000 total?
Let's take this in small bites. First question, would the committee like to add $100,000 back to the highway, roads and bridges budget? In this case, I just lost my line here. General maintenance. Second question would be, If that is a no, then the highway committee is going to request that instead of general maintenance, it's construction, correct?
Correct.
And third, increase in transportation aids. We can lump this all together, but yeah, okay. First question is the $100,000. Scott took it out of the request. Would the committee like to put that back in?
I'm not hearing anything.
I guess if it was simplified in the project, the scope of $100,000 being 3/4 mile of a road or whatever, and Scott's concern being if we do too much at one time, should we spread this out? So what if we just did a $300,000 project with that money coming from the balance and forget about that $100,000 to make it 400?
The $300,000 is already in the budget
Yeah, so
under its current condition.
then what you're saying is keep the $100,000 out of the budget, stick with the administrator's proposal, correct? Okay.
Okay. Are you making a motion for that?
I will make that motion.
Okay. Okay, motion was made by Jeff, seconded by Doak,
That is to go with the administrator's recommendation.
to go with the administrator's proposal. Is there any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Tom?
I'm opposed. I'd rather keep it in.
Okay. Virginia?
Aye, I agree.
Okay, Virginia, Doak, and Jeff agree. Tom and I disagree. Motion carried by 3-2.
Okay. Second question, it sounds like the highway committee, Gary would like to change from maintenance to construction. So we would be putting $100,000 back into general maintenance and reducing general construction.
That is correct.
And that is a net effect of 0. So
Okay, you want to restate that question, Paul?
So the request would be to increase road construction by 100,000. And I'm sorry, I had that. Let me try that again. Decrease road construction by 100,000 and then increase general maintenance by 100,000.
I will make
Virginia?
that motion, if you're ready for that. The motion to reduce the construction.
Okay,
So the construction would go from 1.6 million to 1.5 million? Is that the line item we're talking about?
Yes, currently it's
1.68.
1.68 million. It will go down to 1.58 million.
But then the maintenance item would increase by $100,000.
Correct. So then the maintenance would go from 1,019,644 up to 1,119,644.
okay. And is that what the
That's the motion I'm making, yes.
All right, a motion made by Virginia, seconded by Tom. Okay, any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, all ayes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
And the final highway related adjustment, bridge aids. So we would increase local transportation aid. Did I say bridge aids? General transportation aids. We'd increase general transportation aid by 24. I gotta switch screens here. Increase general transportation aid by $24,018, and then reduce the amount taken from the fund balance by the same $24,018. That one would have no effect on how much is budgeted to spend, and it should have no effect on the amount of work being done.
But is it a reduction in the tax levy then by that?
No, we'd be taking less out of fund balance because we're having more in revenue, so we don't need to take.
Just affecting fund balance.
Yes, so instead of 300,000, it's going to be 275,982.
Got it.
Okay.
I would like to make that motion.
All right, that was made by Doak,
Second.
second by Tom. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Yes, go.
Just as a general information for the committee with this particular revenue that we have, this could get adjusted one more time before the actual budget is published. And this is a variable every year that we go through. So this isn't something that's out of the ordinary. Thank you.
All right. Okay, any other comments? All right, the motion was made by Doak, seconded by Tom to increase by 24,018 and then decrease another extra by 24,018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is that all we got on this one?
Unless there are any
Mr.
more, I guess.
Mr. Chair, you're going to need to approve all the other changes that are in letters A through E.
Tom has got one yet coming up.
I assumed.
Okay, just hang on a second. You don't have anything extra, Todd, do you?
I don't. I'll go back to listening in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye. Okay. Tom,
Are we proposing to go through the entire budget today with questions, or is that for a different time, or?
well, the more you do today, the less you're gonna do at county board.
I've got several questions. If people are willing to bear with me, but.
I've got a sense of humor, Tom.
I'm just wondering, we're increasing our total expenditures by 6.21%, but our levy's only going up 2.64%. Have we got do we get a lot of extra revenue coming in this year that we can afford to spend that much more money, but only raise the levy by a little bit? Or are we staying within the levy limit?
Well, we have to stay within the levy limit. Absolutely. Number two, there are two other parts of that. So if expenses go up, then we have to stay in the levy limit, which we have. There's going to be other revenue, grants, this, that, and other. I don't have that number. Or you take from fund balance. So we're taking some more from fund balance for in the highway. Well, actually, it's the same as last year, a little less. So other revenue has to make up for that. Can I quote how much and where? No, but I can have that. There is some summary information in the front. If it's not spelled out in there, let me know, and I'll find the bigger changes.
It's not spelled out terribly clearly because, to Supervisor Romden's question, I was going to wait until we got to the larger budget question, but it sounds like it relates to the matter at hand. And I was just wondering, as I look at total expenditures on the budget, they go up by 6.21%. Equalized value goes up by 2.86%, and so the levy increases by 326,000. So my question was going to be, I was just hoping for an overview, Paul, as to how do we make this work? And you obviously understand this a lot better than me. I look to you to paint a nice, simple, clear picture for me.
I can do that.
When I go to the revenue side of it, then I see other taxes, 435,000. I'm not exactly sure on that other revenue, 906,000. I assume in that other revenue that's including fund balance.
No, fund balance is always kept separate. Fund balance use and two is not a revenue, it's not an expense. Even in the chart of accounts are commingled.
Give me just a real quick, simple overview of how we're making this balance.
Okay, so the statutes require that budgets must be balanced. So every revenue we expect to receive, every expense we expect to spend needs to be in there. So if expenses go up and we have levy limits, which we've stuck to, have to, then other revenue or fund balance has to make up the difference. So if we have a 6% increase in expenditures like we see, we cannot increase beyond their levy. There's other revenues. And specifically, I'm going to try and pull up a couple of those that you
In
mentioned.
other words, we're finding that money from somewhere.
Yes, we're finding other revenue. What those are, I can't quote right now, but
You can't tell
I
me
will.
what those
That's
other-
two questions here, yes. So we are not exceeding our levy limit. I don't believe we're taking a whole lot more out of the fund balance.
But we are taking some out of fund balance.
We are taking some. We also took some last year, so we can't say, for example, the highway, we can't say 300,000 because we took some last year as well, so.
We're spending money, so we're not actually taking in. So it's a little bit of a shell game. We're not actually taking in enough to cover our expenses, right?
In that particular case, yes, we have more work that we want to do than what's available in revenue.
Right.
So 1 year, 2 years,
So this is for me.
yes.
So nice, simple, clear answer then is we are spending more than we're taking in this year with this budget.
If I may, Mr. Chair, there's a couple things that could be in there.
Well,
One,
it's a simple question, but
Sure.
apparently
No,
not.
page 1, there's an overall summary.
Yes, that's why I've got the question, because I'm looking at page 1 and I'm seeing 6.21% increase in expenditures, an equalized value of 2.86%. And so I'm just
Page
trying
1, okay, on the bottom of those two squares,
Yes,
you'll
sir.
see total revenue, 24,242,000. Total expenditures, 24,071,000, for a net difference of 171,000. Keep in mind, we have $500,000 coming from Dominion. So that comes in, it goes to fund balance until a project is identified, such as broadband.
Okay, so that fund balance then is we're using Dominion money?
This is where we have 40 different funds and some go up and some go down, and that's an overall. So yes and no. Highway
that
Department
makes
this year, yes. If we look at the individual funds, I'll give you another page number.
Yes and no. Well, I guess that answers the question.
No, it doesn't. Page 10 through Page 10 through 14, we can go individually by fund. In the general fund, we have 170,000 of fund balance, the net fund balance change. So in the general fund, and general fund being most operating departments, we are using 170,000 more than what's in revenues there. We also have, we are using more, we have a transfer coming in, and that's from a couple pages down here. The Parks Department has some grants where the lakes boat launch fees are matching it, so that's transferred. That's 40,000. There's 8,000 coming from the Land Information Office to cover a position, and I'm at a loss right now what the other 1,000 was. So in that fund, yes, but in the other funds, for example, Land Information Office, we're using fund balance and sending it over here. So the transfers between net out to zero. If we go down to the highway, after this morning's vote, we'll be using 276,000 of fund balance in the highway fund for those projects. Down here a ways, we can go through each one of these, but I don't think that's the intent here.
Yeah, I think we've gotten a little bit ahead on the agenda, but I was trying to help get an answer to Supervisor Romden's question, which I think I did, and the answer to his question is no. It doesn't appear are expecting all sorts of additional revenue.
if I may, Mr. Chair, I think part of what you're seeing is that within the Human Services Department, there's looking to be additional revenue through Title 19 Medicaid reimbursement, and that would not be through tax levy. So you have certain departments where you will have what is non-property tax levy revenues, like charges for services, state aid, and the like. And so in Human Services, you're going to have more Title 19 revenue that's being projected and budgeted for. for outlay. And for some of these projects, we use fund balance. And the reason why we use fund balance for these projects is they are not general operations. They are projects that are either one-time projects, or they are items that last for a significant period of time. And therefore, from when I submitted the budget, I felt that the fund balance to use to pay for those was justified. So at times you're seeing, yes, the total expenditures is over 6%, and you're seeing that the levy is less than that. And the reason why is because we have money, in a sense, coming from other sources, whether that is charges for services or money that has been set aside in fund balances to help pay for capital projects and equipment purchases.
The question on the question. So looking at page 1, if I updated that to show here's last year's, being 2020, compared to 2021, you would see the increases and decreases by those categories. Would that answer the questions?
It would help.
Okay, because that's a start, though. I will get that out
That definitely help.
today.
I think the fundamental question is, are we spending more than we're taking in? I mean, is this a sustainable budget in terms of revenue versus expenses? I think that's what they're asking.
That's the ultimate question, yes.
This is a sustainable budget. We are using fund balance in places. We're putting it back in places. The big picture, yes, this one is okay, as long as we keep in mind that those places we're using cannot continue year after year after year.
And I think Scott kind of said it in a more simplified yet would probably be, we have X amount on the levy that we can spend, but we've got these fund balances, which is, we said, savings account, if you will. And now we're going to do some of these projects that we've been wanting to do. And so we got to go into our savings account to get those done, and that offsets. So, yeah, we're spending more than we have, but we're taking out of the savings account.
But this is it's sustainable. We're spending more than we have, and
It's not
sustainable. It's sustainable, assuming we have no reference to jail project. Then it becomes extremely unsustainable, doesn't it?
Anything that comes out of fund balance being one-time money, it's not an annual revenue, should be a one-time project. And if you stick with that, you'll stay sustainable. The projects coming out, they're one-time catch-ups, or we have, say, a bigger purchase. I'm not going to stay away from jail. So let's say we have a large outlay request. If it's once every 50 years, well, that could come out of fund balance because we're not having to deal with that year after year after year. If we have an increase in, let's say, our maintenance fees quadrupled, that's a year after year after year thing. That kind of stuff should not come out of fund balance. And again, that's in the administrator's proposal, is routine, ongoing projects are not coming out of fund balance for that reason. That will get you into trouble, and that is not sustainable.
And you had mentioned the Dominion monies, and we're going to be talking about the broadband project and all that. I mean, we're not utilizing that to offset any of this. I mean, I would hope that
We are not, and that was from day one. This should not be used for operating expenses. Now, that's not one-time money. It's 10-year payments. So we'll call that a series of one-time payments. It is going to end after year 10, and if you incorporate that in your operating budget, you're going to be in a world of hurt in year 11.
So the fund reserves that are being used, those are specific to the department that's over the levy in their budget.
Correct.
Paul?
Yes.
I'm just a simple guy here. I'm looking at the page 1, and down there you have that balance. It says we're using $171,000 less than we're taking in. Is that too simplistic a way of looking at that?
That is the combined entire county and all budgeted funds. So it is a simplified number, and it's meant to be a picture of the overall. So if you want to...
Not the same, isn't that the answer to the question that was posed? Are we spending more than we're taking in?
We're actually, if you look, expenses are a little bit less.
Yeah.
So no, we're spending a little bit less, but some of that money coming in is intentionally not being spent. So that's where it's a simple answer, but the details will explain more. I use the Dominion example, and I don't believe we're going to we have any of the Dominion monies spent in the budget in 2021 rather. So that combined with every other fund will give you the 171. But if you want to evaluate, are we, aren't we, are we sustainable or not? That's where the page, and this is a lot, I understand. To me, this makes perfect sense, but page 10 through, what did I say, 15 or so, each individual fund. Some are spending more, some are not. This is a nice big picture to say, here's where we are overall. But making a decision on that one number without knowing what's behind it, which is the reason for the page 10 through whatever, is a little over simple. But that is the, yes, absolutely the overall amount.
Okay,
Somebody
let's
else.
get back to Tom's question.
Could you
here.
just clear this? I don't know if I'm just not grasping this or if I got a mind block here, but if you look at page 1 on the revenue side where you're talking about fund balance used and then on the expenditure side, fund balance retained,
Yes.
what are those? You know, what all goes
Excellent.
into
What are they? Page 16 through, whoops, sorry. Page 14, 15 through 17. Transfers to and from, that's just between funds, and net effect is 0, so we're going to skip that. But page 16 and 17, if you start with the general fund, there's $141,000 of fund balance being used. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different items. Sorry, I'm in the wrong column here. 2021 proposed budget. I have one item there. The sheriff's radio replacement project. That's a big once in a while expenditure. That's not the annual year after year after year item. So replacing the radio system, 141,000 would be using fund balance. If we go down to the mobile command post, I'm not going to go into the small ones. County Roads and Bridges is right there, $300,000 used. And on down the list. If you have questions on those, I can answer them. The next page, page 17, what's going into fund balance. So we'll see for 2021, promo and rec parks, the payment from the Winter Park Association is a loan payment for putting in the Magic Carpet Ride. This is year 3 or 4 of the 5-year payment. It came out of fund balance. When they borrowed it, we're putting it back into fund balance. Economic development, you'll see 596,000 going into it. That's the 5,000. Geez, I'm off today. 500,000 going into it from Dominion. The other 96,000 is because we approved the broadband agreement a month or 2 ago, and that's a principal and interest payment from Bug Tussle. So again, we made the loan. It's coming back. It's going into there until there's a time where another project comes back, it's going into fund balance. That's how you balance the budget without omitting revenues or expenses. And the last one, capital improvement fund. At the time this was printed, there was 62,000 going in there. A through F have already taken that down to, I don't have the final amount here in front of me. It's about 30-some thousand now. So does that answer? Who asked the question? Tom, does that answer your question?
If I were to look at these 2 pages and then
Act-
look back at these 2 numbers,
okay.
I know.
The-
I looked at them too and I didn't see the connection.
These pages are a direct result of your question last year. You said, what's coming out of transfers? I'm like, good question. It's not in there. So here it is. This should be detailed and it'll go back to the previous year as well. What questions have
Any
been
more
answered?
questions, Tom?
just for I don't remember what page it was. Let me get to the right page. On page 4, there's about the middle of the page, it says non-departmental money. And CIF, I don't know what that is.
Okay. Non-department is
CIF,
Capital Improvement Fund. Sorry,
okay.
Economic Development.
Business development, okay. I just couldn't remember what CIF was.
Yeah, I've got this much space to fit all that stuff in, so Yeah, and the last one, business development loan program.
On page 9, what are we, this is under capital outlay? I'm assuming that large number for the sheriff's department is the radio switchover, is that what that is?
Yes, where are we, 315,000? And I will show you what page is the sheriff on. That number will tie out to, yeah, there's vehicles, there's changeover, that is detailed on the sheriff here, sheriff budget page. Page 260, it's the sheriff's department outlay. And there's a list of 10 to 15 items, including 260.
301, and then there's another 14,000.
The 14,000 comes from, jail, the jail assessment fee, that comes to the court system. It's got to be used on jail maintenance and improvement. So 301 is the squad cars, radios, changeover, and I'm missing something here. End of life. AD replacements, end of life. Squad car equipment. That's the gist of it. So there's a detailed list of what is in that bigger number.
Thank you.
Along those same lines, a couple lines above it, 64,000 for the home and rec. I could not find outlays listed in the same fashion.
Promo and rec, sure.
There's only 30-some thousand.
Promo and rec. Okay, promo and rec's outlays on page 211, and you're looking at page 9 yet. Oops. I need a ruler. So promo and rec department on page 9 says 48,000. They requested 64. The administrator said you can have 48,000, or between discussions, the original request was reduced to 48,000. So in the budget, you'll see 48,000.
Oh, okay, so I didn't see the original 64,000.
No.
Okay. But interesting, okay, so that's the same thing, okay, now I see it.
Yeah, the columns.
The sheriff was down to 315.
Yes.
So we don't get to see what was taken out.
Unless you want to. Usually it's a discussion between them and say, here's what I'd like, what do you need, what can you push off, and that's the last one.
Any more questions, Tom? Okay.
Page 25. Under the bottom of the page, under administration, human resources, expenditures, the second line.
Yes.
What is that?
That is a request for more lean training. That number, by the way, with the previous adjustments is down to 25 now. But that's a continuation of the lean process improvement.
Okay, just a comment on this again. Same comment I made last year. This was put in the budget initially as a $25,000 expenditure in 2018. At this time last year, when we were doing the 2020 budget, I think some money was spent, some was not spent. It was taken out of the request for the budget this year. But at the same time, I thought we were going to be getting at some point, at least this year, hopefully before this time, that we were going to get an update from either Scott or somebody about how this process is going. Is it really worth the $25,000 that we're going to be investing in this? And now, is it that big a deal that we are now willing to spend another 30,000 on it when we've heard nothing on what has been done to date? So what can you tell me about that, Scott or anyone?
There was some, thank you, Mr. Romden. There was some initial continuous quality improvement session done under Mr. Johnson. It was trying to streamline the process of people coming in and starting to enter into the system, register for services and the like. There is a report that was there. All of the, again, the money from the previous budget was reduced down to I think about $7,700. The cost for the training was roughly 68. So we've had that, but currently any type of quality improvement training has been put on hold as I try to get the Human Services Department kind of reorganized and refocused. But in the respect of quality improvement, for me, it's not just going to be for Human Services. It could be for other departments as well as any other type of professional development for departments. I think it's important that if employees are our strongest asset, then we should be investing money to make sure that we're continuing to improve our greatest asset.
Is it improving our greatest asset?
Again, when we talk about this, what we're talking about is productivity. Productivity is pretty difficult to put specifically on a spreadsheet because it's not always a dollars and cents type of thing. Because if you have an employee that is more productive, you're still paying them the same salary. So as we start to do this, we start to create performance measures that can show that they are more productive.
How much has been spent so far on this effort?
I would say roughly a little over $10,000 over the last 2 years. First was just an introduction, and then the $6,800 from for the Human Services.
Can you tell me, Paul, what is the contracted services line there? I see at 24,000 just below that.
I believe that's Horton, who's our health and dental and other insurance consultant.
Okay, thank you. Just
I don't know to put another $30,000 on the tax levy for thing that really don't know if it's getting value. Okay, and another question on page 108. KCEDC again is in there for $40,000 on the tax levy. We've had this discussion many times about KCEDC directly. And when this thing first started, probably 15, 16, 17 years ago, I was on the original steering committee that developed this organization, or helped to develop it. At the outset, everyone was told that within 5 years, this organization would be self-sustaining. It wouldn't need any taxpayer money from anybody. Well, you can see that if you look at over the years, I think the county has probably been providing at least 50% of their operating budget with their $40,000 contribution. And I don't know if the county in general is really getting value for that investment. I don't know if any of you individuals would have 40,000 of your own money and they'd come and say, well, you want to give me 40 grand to help run this business or this organization? I don't know if anybody would do it. And there's been, over the last few years, there's been a discussion annually at the budget about reducing the amount annually, cutting it so much each year, and then finally weeding them off. 2018, we asked, we put $40,000 in the budget for them because they were in the process of hiring a new director. They were changing goals. They were changing direction. I don't know what happened, but we also at that time were supposed to get a listing of who their contributors were, what they were contributing, what their short-term goals were, long-term goals. We've never seen any of that. I'm just wondering if, again, I don't know that if we should be spending $40,000 of taxpayer money in this organization, which is, in my opinion, is not producing any economic development results.
Are you aware, Supervisor Romden, that they've dispatched their director?
Not until I saw this letter, no.
Okay, so you are aware of that. I didn't know if that was something you would.
So if the county board in general at the final adoption of the budget feels that you want to give them 40 grand again this year, I would strongly recommend again that it be taken out of the economic development fund and not put on the tax levy.
Could somebody explain why we're losing or having to keep top up this?
Supervisor Poppy can.
I guess what is your clear question here? I want to make just one comment. Amber Hewitt is currently right now our intern director, as a letter states. She would be here today. She's dealing with a COVID issue at their house. So apparently I asked that a letter get sent to you guys. The press release went out yesterday morning. So that's why it's new news. This happened on Monday. So we were not satisfied, or I should say the board was not satisfied in the direction we were going in with this person and decided to release him. So we are, you know, and Tom is 100% correct. The funds that we get from the county are probably about 50% of the funding for this project. Now, everybody keeps saying that we need growth in the county. Or trying to retain, and that's basically what we are supposed to be doing. I think the board has felt they are going to move in a different direction at this time to look at a different, not an economic development person. And quite frankly, if the board decides not to fund it, it's going to be a dead issue because we can't survive without the money. It's very clear. So that's the decision we have to make. Do I think we got the results that we wanted to see? No.
What were the ways you gauge success for the organization?
We provide a lot of training for school kids, number one. We provide training in the ag field or the manufacturing fields. Try to retain employment in the county, you know, if they have a problem. Sometimes it can't be changed. Looking for new people to come in, new companies to come in, which is very hard at this point. And let's face it, COVID hit us too. It made a different direction for us to go in.
So, to Tom's personal note, when it was formed, the idea was he's going to be able to be self-funded.
Correct.
Is that ever?
Well, it's been, you know, they never got to the point where they could afford to, you know, like, it's not going to be a Door County issue where, you know, they can have a building that gets revenue off of it from, you know, renters, whatever, you know. There are grants out there to try that, but, you know, you need some capital to work with also.
If I could add to that, Gary, a little bit, the purpose, I'm new to that committee, of course, but, you know, some of the things that are discussed is things such as inventory in the county for land development, that sort of thing, marketing that. There's different tools that was discussed and how to market that. So if businesses are looking for our type of demographic, what do we have available? You know, they were very instrumental for Kewaunee for lobbying to get the seawall. That was $4.2 million. That's a big thing in itself. It was not completed by any one individual or one organization. It was a collaborative effort, but clearly successful. I don't believe the KCEDC will ever be, I mean, it survives on membership and donations. And the villages, cities, and the county are part of that membership, and their contribution reflects that. How much should it be? You know, should, like Tom suggested, should we start backing that off? I think that could be considered, but as Gary said, the organization would be dissolved if the county backed out. A good suggestion, maybe that should come out of the economic development side of things. That money's there for that purpose. That seems like a good suggestion as well, but I guess that's about all I got.
The answer that nobody ever seems to give, I've been in on these, which seems like we spend hours on this every time the budget comes up. And, you know, the theory that it's going to be self-sustaining, the problem with that is that nobody's ever explained how there would be any hope of that actually happening. The second issue, and I don't believe it will. The second issue is then you're essentially putting in, you know, county money. And so then the question always, the discussion always is it worth it? What value are we getting for it? And the answer to that question always seems a little bit muddy. I have always vacillated on this vote back and forth because the answer to whether or not, and a lot of the discussion seems to be that's in favor of spending the money, a lot of the discussion is, well, if we don't do it, it's not going to survive, and then it'll cost the county more, which I'm not so sure I agree with that at all. It would only cost the county more if we, you know, took it over ourselves. So the question, I guess, really is, if we didn't have this, what difference would it make to the county? Because that's kind of the option. I think that's really what you boil it down to is, if the county doesn't spend this, it doesn't exist. So does that matter? I mean, is it worth 40 grand a year from the county for this to exist? That's I think really what it comes down to. And even that answer seems to be always it seems to be a struggle to get an answer on that. It's muddy.
You know, I think just, and I've been listening to this, Tom too, and Gary. We all came out in Virginia. We came on the same year. How do we track what it's done year in, year out? I mean, I know really no figures that were ever given to any of us. Dan, you agree?
There's no way to track it. I mean, it's
Yeah,
we're talking about the seawall. Would the seawall have happened if we didn't have KCEDC?
Yeah, we don't know.
The answer usually is, well, it probably would have. It might have. I mean, nobody can.
No one knows. You can't just put your
No
finger
one
on it.
knows. And so when it comes to voting for this, it
You know,
could be
yeah, we can get rid of it, but will it come back and bite us in the butt? That's the question, you know.
no one knows.
No one knows.
Yeah, but that's not a good reason to perpetuate it forever.
It isn't. And I'm kind of hoping that, you know, Amber, whoever succeeds Amber, I would like to see something to track it. I mean,
But let's not forget, okay, we're in a position right now, the last 2 years came to Monday, where the KCEDC is looking to go in a different direction by the change of the director of the KCEDC. So obviously things weren't going the way that KCEDC board would like them to go. So there is obviously a change. Is KCEDC in itself something that's a good idea to do business retention and all the things that we hope for? It is. Has it been effective, especially in the recent years? I would say clearly not.
But getting the director, I remember, and I'm sure Supervisor Romden remembers the conversation. You know, we were supposed to give him the money because getting the director was going to solve all the problems.
When
Here's another,
We're taking a new direction. We're gonna reestablish new goals. We're gonna have this, we're gonna have that.
here's another question is do we have to have a full-time director? Have they considered other alternatives? I mean, are there other options? Are there other ways that they could consider to do this that would, lower the amount and maybe be just as effective? I'm not sure how much less effective it could be, quite honestly.
The other thing that really upsets me to this day yet is when we put this budget together in 2018 for 2019, that $40,000 was in the budget. It was it didn't come out of the it came out of the economic development fund, but there were some strings attached to that 40 grand. And one of them was that they would get 30,000 of the 40 through the third quarter, and then at the end of the third quarter, they were supposed to provide us, the county board, with a financial statement showing that they were able to match that $40,000 in private and contributions. That never happened. They couldn't do it. So what happened is, all of a sudden, out of the blue comes this request that, well, let's take the 10,000 that they're not going to get for operation, and they needed some computer programs or something that, so the county board gave them 10 grand to spend on that.
No, no, it wasn't 10. It was about 7 or 8. It wasn't a full 10.
The extra 10,000 was appropriate.
Yes,
Whether
you're correct.
it was used or not, I
Correct.
don't know. But what in 2 years now, what did that investment in that computer program do for KCEDC or for the county?
Not much, Tom. That was one of our issues that we had with the director that we had. The computer program appears to be not an easy program to run, number one. And so the information we did recover from that program, it does have some information in there regarding let's say buildings that are for sale or possibility square footage, or that kind of information is in there, but it's not complete. And so I believe that we did drop one of those programs.
Don't get me wrong, I'm 100% in favor of any type of economic development that we can do at the county level, at the municipal level, at the town level, at the state level, national level. But I don't know if doing it the way we're trying to do it is the answer. And, I'm willing to support KCEDC, but we got to have some results here. You keep pouring 40 grand in there every year. We have to have results. You wouldn't keep spending your own money on something like this if you didn't get results. And I don't know how you measure the results, but one of the things that they told us when they were reorganizing 2.5 years ago is that they were going to have goals that were measurable. And I haven't seen any of them. I've not seen a financial statement. I've not seen a list of donors. I've not seen short-term goals. I've not seen long-term goals. Haven't seen anything that can be measurable. So, is this reorganization now with the third director now since I've been here going to change anything? I don't know. That's something that the county board's going to have to decide on. 'Cause
How long has this existed now?
I would say it started back in 2005, 4, 3, somewhere back in there.
Been a long time.
Been at least 15 to 17 years. So we've invested $750,000 in it almost. And
Gary, do you have any follow-up to Tom's question concerning any measurable?
I guess I can get some of that information.
I would just assume that you're going to reorganize, so you're going to be you're going to do something totally different and probably.
Well, that's correct, but if the intent or the feeling is of the board to not provide any fundings, then there's no reorganization. It's very simple. It's very clear on that. So that's the option. I mean, the direction we go is the direction we go in. They strongly depend on this support, and I guess right now the funding isn't there to do it on their own. So I can get you information that I guess I don't know exactly what you're looking for, but we certainly can provide.
Like, membership,
Yeah.
And the dollars. Have
Absolutely.
we generated
Yeah.
a match to
Sure.
the 40 and just in
I hear
private
you.
donations and
Right,
membership.
You know, and right now, it's gonna be, the information we're giving you, it would be the information from this year, and I'll guarantee you it's down because the COVID is hit us also. So it's not a real true picture, but yeah, I can get you that information, Tom, if that's what you'd like, or the committee. Um,
But then
Dude,
you're gonna be trying to get, if you're trying to get another director, I mean, this is the other thing is, what really qualified person is going to accept a position that they are going to know in advance is a year-to-year kind of a thing. They're coming into something that essentially is in shambles. I have a tendency to think that people are going to look at that, and somebody that's really, would be great is going to be difficult to recruit.
I think you hit it on the head with that one.
Well,
With a great sense of humor, maybe. Go ahead, Doc.
I'm listening to this with zero experience, and I'm listening to all the people who've been here all this time. If after 15 years, this thing, even the members say we're not sure we can track how we benefit the county, I don't see any reason why it needs to exist any longer.
I think we should all read the book titled Necessary Endings.
I don't, myself, I don't know if I want to visit the fact that we have no one there. Because I fear that if we have absolutely no one whatsoever, what are we going to lose? The question always comes back, what are we gaining? And boy, if you could get Amber to at least look and give us some kind of an idea of what's going on. I mean, what have we gained? Don't give it to us in a glossy. You don't have to spend money in that, but tell us what we've gained.
What would happen if the money were to be approved, put in the budget, but none is released until the board sees an acceptable plan and thinks that there's going to be some sort of useful purpose to spending the money? That would at least be something.
I believe we did that 3 years ago, didn't we, Tom?
Never saw anything, so.
Yeah.
But yet we gave them the
Well,
money.
I think that after they hired Richard, that was supposedly that there were ties to that money at that time, and it was released, but oh my goodness.
You know what, I don't know, I've never been involved in anything with the current board of KDC, what they do to reorganize, how they set their priorities, how they measure their goals. But I think part of the issue might be that, I don't know if the board is not setting realistic goals, or are they setting any goals, and are they measurable? And is it so vague that they're setting their executive director up for failure initially? I don't know what's going on there, because
Well, and quite basically, all our meetings are publicized. They're open to any of these supervisors that want to attend. There have been a few that have attended, but very few. So I guess basically it shows that some of these supervisors have no interest in it regardless. So, I mean, it is a meeting that can be attended. It's not a closed session meeting.
But even if we can't draw a clear line between what this organization does and the benefit to the county, and we still feel we're putting in more money than we're gaining from it, it seems pretty simple. We're not going to be any worse off without it. If we can't put that dollars to some sort of way of evaluating what the work is being, what is the value of the work being done, how are we worse off by not funding it at all?
I think you can kind of look at it like marketing. Can you measure all your marketing dollars and a return on investment? It's pretty darn difficult on most things unless you've got redeemable coupons or that sort of thing that you can track. But I think our chairman posed a good question. we're looking at what is it like to keep it, what was it gonna look like if we get rid of it? And, you know, that's immeasurable at this time, but maybe in the future we'll be like, geez, we lost a company that was coming here, or we didn't retain a company that was here. We didn't have the resources. And part of the conversation, I was just trying to find in my email and reports from KCDC, we had membership from the last 5 years, I want to say, with all the monies contributed. That spreadsheet, I can't find it, but you know, we look at things in the county, all the municipalities and all the businesses, what we can do collaboratively as opposed to individually, where your money's better spent combined. And I think this is an example of how it can be. Is it being best completed? I don't believe so. I think there's a lot of faults with the way things have been going with KCDC. But I don't believe it should be dissolved.
I guess basically, we have really one more shot to kick this at the November meeting, correct? There's a November 6th budget hearing here, I mean, budget meeting, is that correct?
Yes, this can also come up during the October board meeting. It could come up.
Yeah,
There's a
well, I
finance
just want to know,
committee.
I'm going to try to get some information to you guys, you know, that may help answer some of these questions here, but how soon, what's the timeline I have to do this? You
What
know?
are we gonna hear? Are we gonna hear the same lip service that we've got for the last few years about, you know, what the organization is trying to do, or
Well,
what?
basically, Tom, you asked for some paperwork to show what we've done, so that's what I'm going to try to get to you.
I'm kind of looking for what, you know, and you're probably gonna be changing the format again if you reorganize again as far as your goals and objectives. I would assume you're probably not gonna have the same goals and objectives you are that didn't work the last 2 years. So I don't know what the board is proposing. But
I can share that the revenue report for 2020, total public and private sector revenue, including in-kind and PPP loan, was $84,488.
Say again, I didn't catch it, Jeff.
The total public and private sector revenue, including in-kind and PPP loan, for 2020 was $84,488.
what was the PPP loan for? Or what was the amount,
That
do
was
you
for
know?
the COVID thing, that was
13, huh?
13,000.
13.
Total private sector revenue in kind was $23,038.
And that went into a pool that was all spent on programs, or was part of that administrative thing?
Certainly part of that's administrative cost. I mean, that's the biggest problem that we're here right now is we're not, you know, sadly, this is happening with the transition of the director right at budget. Because prior to this, it would be expected that representative from KCDC, ideally the director, would be here prior to budget, giving us an update on this past year's success, the budget, and all that sort of thing.
You know,
Mr. Chair?
numbers that you had private sector development backing of 23,000. The county threw in 40. PPP's 13 at 76,000. So how much other municipal spending came in other than the county?
Mr. Chairman, I know that the city of Algoma and the city of Kewaunee and the townships of Pierce and Anapee did also contribute. If it please the committee, I can work with Supervisor Poppy and with interim director Amber Hewitt to put together a summary and provide the information that the committee is looking for.
To be presented when?
By the 20th.
I guess what information are we looking for? I guess what I'm looking for is what have they done in the last 2 years?
And that information should be reported. You're absolutely correct. No one's going to give their somebody and not know what it was spent on.
I would still like to, I won't put this in the form of a motion at this time because it looks like this discussion is going to continue, but what I'd like to see is if we do fund it, whether 40, 30, 20, whatever, that money comes out of the economic development fund, not on the tax levy.
Oh,
But it would basically would
that's gonna
coming
dry
from.
up here in a few years. Then it'll come back on
And
its own.
do we, how long do we keep throwing money at the same thing?
Well, you posed another good point though earlier, Tom, that it would be progressively decreasing amount by the county, incrementally, that it would have to become sustainable, self-sustainable. Or that
if
type
you-
of schedule would be a good proposition.
If you schedule it down over the next couple of years, like I say, we go 30, 20, 10, and nothing, but if we see over the next course of the next couple of years that, hey, this is really doing something, we could think about going the other way. But I just can't see throwing money every year at it and seeing basically, in my opinion, no results.
And I totally agree with Tom's answer to that question. You know, if the corporation is doing absolutely nothing for that money, I totally agree with that. I think that there should be some timeline set on that. You know, and you know, if we can produce in a couple of years, it's, you know, but I think right now really becomes a hard time for us because we're kind of sitting here between a rock and a hard place, and that's very simple. So I don't think the board would have a problem with putting a timeline on there and make it clear, you know. If we can't find enough revenue to keep it going, that's it.
How do we solicit donations? Do you know, Jeff?
There was just a letter.
There's a letter that's being sent out. I believe, you know, everything kind of got put on hold with this event that happened Monday. So basically, I think the board is going to be meeting, well, the executive board is meeting next Thursday to try to work out some perimeter here. So I, you know, like I say, it's very important that, you know, if we're not going to really advertise for anybody, if we're not going to get any help from it. So it's kind of foolish for us to do anything till we understand what the county budget's going to be. I think that's right down to the bare facts.
You know, the reason I asked that question is I'm looking at the 2020 revenue report right now. My company's not on it, either one of them. And I know we were in the past. I don't know of any.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times if I don't get something,
I totally hear you, and that was part of the issue we were having. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. You still can always give money if you want. Just write us a check, we'll take it. If that's the question, John.
that is a question. Yes, it is.
But there's really two paths to this, right? I mean, either we see proof that the work done by this is benefiting the county to the tune of more than $40,000 a year, or the organization finds other revenue to support them and doesn't provide that proof to the county, and the county can drop out of being a member or a contributor to it. So I think there's really two paths to that. But what I'm not sure. I think what Scott was suggesting, he was going to try to help build a case for the benefit of the work that's happened so far. The kind of work on the first piece to show that we're getting more than a dollar for dollar benefit for our contribution.
I think basically it's trying to put the facts out there that what Tom is asking for, information, or the whole committee here is asking for, so they can see, you know, what we were doing, and there's no problem with that.
Correct. I echo what Supervisor Poppy is saying. My my invitation was to work with KCDC to put together a summary of information, both financial and programmatic, to basically give to the committee to determine where they have been financially over the past number of years, what accomplishments they've had, who's been involved, all those different types of things. And then the committee and the board can decide for themselves as to whether they want to continue investment and at what level. Mr. Chair, from a procedure standpoint,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair,
Yes.
from a procedure standpoint, you had Supervisor Rompton offer a motion. There hasn't been a second, or a second was not asked for. And then after that motion either is approved or dies, I would ask, just from a housekeeping standpoint, you have all these other items that Mr. Kunish had summarized. If the committee could therefore at least approve those before they discuss any other items that they might want to change in the county budget.
What do you want to do with your motion?
I didn't make.
I didn't think he made a motion.
He didn't want to make a motion. Okay.
Not at this time.
Not at this time. I think we'll see this come back.
Well, I just want everybody to think about the discussion we had here, and we have time to do this, so.
Okay. So what we had is we had a discussion of all those budget adjustments. And let's see. Which ones?
So I can.
Go ahead. The ones that we have already passed.
Yes,
we're
so we have
aware of.
A through E, excluding B, which was the putting back in 100,000. The Finance Committee asked that we move 100,000 from road construction to general maintenance. And then we also made the adjustment for 24,000 and change of transportation aids.
Correct. Those we acted on already.
Did we take a vote and pass?
On 1, 2, 3, yes, we did.
Okay, then the rest of them, which would be
A, C, D, and E.
okay.
Yes. What we would need then is motion to act upon A, C, D, and E. We've already acted on B.
Just clarification,
Yes.
was this what was attached to the packet meeting, or was it an amended one?
This was in the packet to the meeting, the budget.
In the packet with a few changes that were discussed this morning already. So
Okay, yeah, so there's more down at the bottom you mentioned, that's why
Yeah.
I didn't have a,
yeah, we didn't have the transportation aids numbers and the change within the 100,000 between road construction, whatever was this morning. But the A, C, D, and E were all handed out and being voted on as on that list. Do you need a list?
yeah, I don't know what.
You
I-
gonna
yeah.
do these individually, or you gonna do them all at once?
Do you want to do them all at once or individually?
I mean, I think we pretty much know what they are.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, mine is with 0, okay. All right, I got the same one, that was in the packet, yep.
All right. So I would need a motion, if you want to do them all at once, to accept items A, C, D, and E. What's the pleasure?
I'll make that
Virginia,
motion to accept the A, C, D, E.
all right?
Is,
Just for clarification, what is it? A is the one with the shared revenue and utility tax adjustment coming
Correct.
out of capital
Correct.
improvement money?
Correct.
And then B is,
Would you like me to review them once more?
This would-
Let's get a second and then we'll review it. We'll
I'll
just
second
under
the motion.
discussion. Tom's gonna second the motion. Okay, now,
But I just want to make sure.
go
that
ahead
I
and
understand
clarify it.
the
Okay.
numbers again.
A is state revenue utility tax net effect of 29,922 coming ultimately out of the capital improvement fund. C is the three individual wage adjustments coming from various locations listed there. D is the land information office increase in grant revenue, increase in grant expenditures. And E was an increase in the outlay for the sheriff, reducing professional development in the administrator's office, and the remaining 526 was reducing another expense in the sheriff's office. 2, 3, 4, and that was the 4 of them.
Okay. Is there any other questions, comments, discussion?
I guess this is the only place I'd seen it showing up as the, what is the professional development?
That would be for the lean.
Why is this one, sheriff?
Oh, the sheriff's expenses are increasing, but then the question is, where does that come from? And the administrator said he needs 5,000 more. He'll give him 5,000 from that continuous improvement.
Any more questions? Everything is now as clear as mud? All right. No other comments? All those in favor of the vote to accept A, C, D, and E, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Gosh, we're past that one.
I have one more question.
I just can't imagine that, Tom.
It's just information.
Okay.
195, there's a proposed outlay for this administration building of 121 grand. Is that money in the capital improvement fund already, or is that on the levy this year?
Thinking for a second. Page 195.
Maintenance general administration office for 121,000. I don't remember if we talked about that, if it was coming out of the capital improvement fund or if it's in the levy this year.
No, this one's on the levy. There's $100,000 for improvement to the heating and cooling system. I can explain the difference. There's a control module for the system
I
here.
don't care about this specific, I just want to know
Yeah.
if it's a levy.
Oh, levy. Short answer is levy.
That's all I have for now.
Okay. Moving on. Discussion of broadband phase 2. Okay, Scott, if you're listening, do you want to take that one?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Couple different, the sheet in your packet shows a map and it shows estimated project costs. So to give a summary, the Broadband Study Committee and the Executive Committee had talked about should the county move forward with phase 2 of the broadband strategy and apply for another Public Service Commission broadband expansion grant. And there was a lot of discussion, and it surrounded basically 2 things. One is, should we move forward with putting in an application when we still do not have the fixed towers all constructed and the first part of the project kind of completed and folks getting broadband? The second item was, well, we know that there's only a certain amount of money that is being provided for broadband expansion. There's another $24 million that's available for application this year. And the thought is that Kewaunee County may, as this goes farther along, be further and further in back of the line. It was the feeling of the broadband committee to recommend to the executive committee that the county does apply for the Public Service Commission Broadband Expansion Grant Funds. The executive committee had reviewed that as well and had said that, yes, they believe that we should do this. And again, even if we were to apply and be awarded, it does not obligate the county to accept the funds and move forward. So that's the background. As for the sheet of paper itself, I'll start first with the map. If you look at the map, there are pink lines, there are blue lines, and there are green lines. The blue lines are existing Cellcom fiber routes. The pink lines would be the fiber routes that we would do in what I'd like to call component A of phase 2. The green lines are component B in the phase 2 of moving forward with broadband. Now remember that phase 2 of the broadband project is to have fiber go to all of the towers that are being constructed to therefore increase speed and capacity for those folks that are connecting via fixed wireless. So the broadband committee had requested a bug tussle to therefore provide some cost estimates. And if you see there, what they have is they have estimated costs if they use existing Cellcom fiber lines, and they have estimated costs if they do not use Cellcom fiber lines. You have first the entire project, and then you have what would be considered the phases, component A and component B, or I'll call it pink and green. The thought would be to apply first with the pink component, which would be roughly about, I want to make sure I have this right, roughly about 2.3 million again, of which there's a certain amount that Kewaunee County would again use as a match. The thought and the conversation with Steve Schneider, and he did say this also in the broadband committee, is that the same financing opportunity would be that if the county were to put forth the money, that Bug Tussle would pay the county back for every dollar over the course of 12 years. Very similar, in fact, exactly the same terms that we have right now for our first phase. So the whole thought is, and we're not needing action at this time, and the reason why is because we have not yet submitted an application, nor have we received an award, but we want to make sure that we are keeping everyone up to date and informed as to how this project continues to move forward. The question that eventually would come to the finance committee is the county willing to put forth that money for the pink component if we were awarded the grant funds? So again, more of an informational discussion item than any action being needed.
Okay, what's your question?
What did Bug Tussle, the 2.3 million, what would the county's contribution have to be that Bug Tussle would pay us back then? Do you have any idea, or is?
I'm trying to look at the whole thing. Sorry, Supervisor Romden. If I'm looking at what I'm sorry. If we're looking at the pink component, we would be looking at a county request of 1.9 million, of which, again, if that 1.9 million, if we were awarded the 1.24 million from the PSC, then what would happen is we would receive the 1.2 million from the PSC. The county would put forward 1.9 million. and the Bug Tussle would put forward about 350,000, but again, Bug Tussle would pay us back the 1.9 million that the county would be fronting.
Scott, can you explain why the headings are with or without Cellcom involved? I mean, it looks like there's a choice there, and they weren't involved up to now. Is that the case?
Correct, Supervisor Baker. Currently with fixed wireless, there was no need for Cellcom, but the whole thought was, and Cellcom does work, I'm sorry, Bug Tussle does work fairly closely. They have a very good relationship with Cellcom. Instead of having to bury their own fiber, they could possibly, through a partnership with Cellcom, use some of their existing fiber, which would therefore reduce the total cost of the project. But for full due diligence, it's best to provide both cost estimates as to if Cellcom does agree to be partners or if Cellcom does not agree to be a partner.
When is a decision expected on that?
The PSC grant deadline is December 1st, of which we're working with Bug Tussle to then submit a grant application. And then we would assume sometime near the end of the first quarter of 2021 to receive word whether a grant was awarded for our application.
One other point of clarification. These costs are all just for the fiber, or do these include putting up the towers?
These costs are only for the fiber. The costs for the towers were already in phase one and have already been, I'll call it, budgeted. So this proposal has nothing to do with the towers. It has to do with bringing fiber to those towers.
So phase one of this is not the same as phase one that we're talking about the towers.
Correct, and that's why I tried to say component as opposed to phase, because we are in phase one right now, which is to do the construction of the fixed wireless towers and the co-location of equipment on currently owned towers by the county and some private and Vertical Bridge. Phase two is to bring fiber to those fixed towers. And that's why I've been calling it the pink component and the green component of phase two, as opposed to saying phase again, so there's less confusion.
I understand.
Scott, the question I have, other than Cellcom, are there other providers of fiber in the county besides Cellcom?
There are a few, yes. There is CenturyLink and the like. I do not believe that Bug Tussle has had any conversations with CenturyLink, and there may be a few others. But I do know with Bug Tussle, because Mr. Schneider used to be employed by Cellcom, that he has a very good relationship and a very good working relationship with Cellcom. So I'm going to guess that there was some very preliminary conversations with Cellcom, but I know that there have been some executive or personnel changes within Cellcom due to retirements. And so therefore, I don't know that Mr. Schneider has any definitive answers as to whether Cellcom would be interested in partnering or not.
Okay.
Again, more for discussion and for information. No action needs to be taken at this time. I think we'll have a much clearer picture by spring of 2021 for two main reasons. One, I feel fairly confident that the equipment and the towers will be up if not by that time, very shortly by that time. And second, we'll have an answer as to whether our grant application was accepted and what money, if any, was awarded.
Okay. Any questions for Scott? Go ahead, Doak.
Not for Scott, it's actually for you or Chair Olson. Can we get a
Okay.
quarterly update from Bug Tussle on where they are with all this work? Because I see nothing, I mean, I
They-
don't see any evidence that stuff is going on.
They have, they were present at the broadband committee meeting, so you should get it in the minutes on broadband. And also, I gave an update from in the last board meeting, and we will be working on getting them to come, periodically to full board meetings as well.
If I could just add to that, I believe we had secured all land agreements, and there was one
Yeah,
that they
that-
were just finalizing.
We haven't received minutes yet, the broadband committee, but that should all be included.
Yes.
Yes,
Was that committee?
I can send that out to everyone.
met downstairs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think they identified all the landowners, but I think they were still.
They're not.
Correct. They had identified all of the landowners and the sites. They were in negotiations. They were expecting or hoping that all signatures would be obtained within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then from there, start the regulatory process. The regulatory process takes at a minimum about 105 days. But once the regulatory process has been agreed upon by all necessary parties, they will start digging regardless of the date. If there's snow on the ground, they will heat the ground and they will dig.
I think getting those minutes from broadband, that'll be very helpful because there were 3 people from Bug Tussle at broadband committee meeting.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this one? Let's move on. Item number 10. Who wants to take that, Paul or Scott? Land lease renewals.
I will, Mr. Chair.
All right.
At the previous meeting, the Finance Committee had directed administration to send proposals to Himes Hillcrest, who leases out the landfill acreage, and to Pagels Ponderosa that leases out the Sikorsky pit, with the proviso or with the provisions that we would give them another 5-year extension on their contract if they agree to a 16% increase in the per acre rate. I made that offer to both Pagels and to Himes. Himes did agree. That is the contract that is in front of you for approval. As for Pagels Ponderosa, they were concerned about any additional loss of acreage. In talking with the highway commissioner, there will be some additional acreage that will need to be taken out of Sikorsky pit. I made Pagels Ponderosa aware of that. Therefore, they have decided not to seek renewal under the terms that were provided, but they are very interested and will participate in the closed bid process.
Okay. Any questions on that? When are you going to push for the bidding?
Probably when I get back to the office sometime next week. If not, then the week of October 12th, I will probably put that out and have that be done and have bids have to be received sometime in November. I will give them probably 4 weeks, as we have done in the past.
Okay, and that's for the Sikorsky pit. That would be the Wisnicki formerly Wisnicki property.
Correct.
What about the property down in Franklin?
That is actually still has 1 more year under lease with Mr. Bradley. That for some reason is not coinciding, but when we do that next one, I will do it as a 4-year term. So that way all parcels are are synchronous in for renewal.
Okay. All right. You made mention that you had before us a copy of the lease. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
There it is.
I'm sorry, is it there in front of the committee?
Yeah, I've got it here.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. What we would need is a motion leased for Himes. You've got the lease. You've seen the lease? Okay.
The one that's in the packet, right? I make a motion.
Motion is made by Doak, seconded by Jeff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Vendor payments. I hope you had a chance to review the vendor payments. Or sent. You got them yesterday, I believe you sent them out.
Yeah, we run that at the end of the month, so with the meeting being today on today's the 2nd.
Got 'em
That
here.
was
I
a very
haven't- I
tight
haven't
schedule.
reviewed 'em. So I'll trust you, Paul.
Oh, that is not in our internal control, don't.
Okay.
As well as the overtime report, we run that at the end of the month. I have that scheduled, so that comes out on the 1st. So meeting dates that are as close to this, we'll have to get those out after the packet goes out.
You gotta work overtime to get them out, don't you? Okay.
Scotty salary.
Yeah, I would say my overtime is free, but that's just encouraging more work.
Moving to number 12, approve the supplemental payroll. I believe that's being passed around now.
I make a motion to approve the supplemental payroll as presented.
A motion by Tom, seconded by Doak. Any questions? All right. Having no questions, a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That motion carried. Other such matters as authorized by law. I had you down, Gary, but I think you pretty much covered it, didn't you?
Yeah, fine, yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have one thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I will be asking that a meeting be scheduled for October 20th before the county board meeting. There is a resolution regarding our CDBG close funds, which were part of our county's revolving loan fund. We need to have an amendment approved as part of the final closeout report that is allocating the monies to the city of Kewaunee and the city of Algoma as to the CDBG close funds. And so that's a resolution that will come before the board that same evening, but it is something that I would like the finance committee to see, review, and approve.
Okay. And Paul, you're going to put their other item on there for the 20th meeting?
Yeah, I believe that Scott also said that the KCEDC items that were requested would be at the October meeting as well. So we should probably have an hour for that. That's potentially a long discussion.
Okay. Any other comments? Dan, do you have anything?
I just have a
Yes.
follow-up. Jeff, have you heard anything or seen anything going on at the campgrounds?
I have not. I think the last I heard was because the way the approvals went in the middle of summer, he was going to do more cleanup and disposal work and not try to incur, he has a line of credit through a bank. He was going to try not to incur much in the way of loans until next season. So I think he's going to do more cleanup and that kind of work.
I mean, I was up there, and let me tell you, he really cleaned. I think he found out that he's got a monster more than he thought he did. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You can actually see the campground now. Okay, our next meeting would be October 20th, before the board meeting.
So it's gonna be at Luxembourg, right? At Luxembourg?
Yeah,
Board
as
meeting's
of
still
right
at
now, we're
Luxembourg?
at Luxembourg, so,
I don't see that changing anytime soon.
yeah.
5 PM?
We're scheduled, I believe 6 o'clock is a board meeting, so we'll schedule an hour for finance, okay? Meet in the 4H room, just so we don't have confusion like the last time.
And then we have a meeting set for November 6th, right?
We do have one for November 6th. Now, as of right now, Tom, we will have the agenda made up for that meeting. You're going to be the lucky chair, because I'm going Branson. Probably everything is closed, but I'll be going.
Scott called in, it could work for you too.
Oh, really? Cool. Did you call Dolly and tell her to be in Branson on that weekend? With two black eyes, you know what happened, huh? Okay. Anything else? All right. We would need motion to adjourn by Tom, seconded by Doak. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, we're out.